Have you been in those situations where you're trying to figure out what to do, where to go, what to eat, what kind of pizza to order, what movie to watch, and whether you're in a group of friends or with that other person, what do you want to do? Well, I don't care. What do you want to do? What do you want to eat? Well, I don't care. What do you want? What do you want to order? I don't care. And we get into this thing where I don't care, but clearly we have a preference. Like, I know what I want. I would prefer this. But we throw this back and forth and play this game of deferring to each other. And sometimes it takes forever to finally settle on something. Why do we do that? Why do we do that with one another? I suppose there are many reasons, but the one that I want to focus on that kind of jumps out to me is akin to that ancient virtue that we know to be the fear of the Lord. Wonder and awe. Deep, deep love and a movement of the heart. That we defer to one another because I care about you. Because I really desire that you are happy. And my happiness depends on your happiness. And so we do set aside our own desires, our own wants, our own preferences for the other person or for the group because I want to enjoy this happiness that is yours. And because of that, because I care about you, I'm willing to change. I'm willing to change my own preference. I'm willing to change my own desires for you. And that's going to make me happy. And that is what's at the heart of that virtue or that gift of the Spirit known as the fear of the Lord. That the fear of the Lord is the great wonder and awe. That so much so that we all of a sudden want to change who we are for God. For the one that we love and we're captivated by. And it's a grace that we see at work in these two men who are called today by God. We hear the story of Isaiah as he has this vision, whether it's a dream or a vision, however it comes to him, but he recognizes the presence of God as if they were at the divine liturgy. And there is God in the chair with his robes flowing everywhere and filling the sanctuary, and the angels moving about in perfect synchronization. And the colors and the sounds and the songs are precise and beautiful and measured perfectly. And all of a sudden, Isaiah recognizes, I shouldn't be here. I'm not fit to be in this company. They're moving too perfectly. They're too beautiful. I am a sinful man with unclean lips, and I live among sinful people with unclean lips. There's no way. If I go up in there, I'm going to mess everything up. I'm going to stumble around. I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb. I'm going to ruin the beauty of this moment. And so Isaiah recognizes that he has to back away. I don't belong there. My life is so far removed from what God is revealing to me. Until that angel approaches him with that burning ember and presses it upon his lips and says, let your sin be blotted out. Let it be washed away. You now belong here. We'll take away that thing that you're afraid of. We'll take away that thing that you're going to say the wrong thing, that you're going to do the wrong thing. We're going to heal that. And that so changes him that when God asks, now who are we going to send? Isaiah, who might have said, well, send that angel because he's the most beautiful. Or send that angel because he's the most eloquent. Or send that messenger. Or so on and so forth. No, he says, send me. The one who doesn't belong here at first. Send me. I'm ready to go. You've changed me. I've let myself be changed in your presence, and now I'm ready to do your work. That vision of God, that wonder and awe, caused Isaiah to step back, recognize who God was, that he was nowhere near that, and had to change. But it was also a recognition that he couldn't change himself, that I have to let myself be changed by this other one. and that's going to make me happy. That's the key to my happiness. Peter encounters a very similar experience when Jesus gets into his boat. It is not as glorious, it is not as beautiful or transcendent, it's very ordinary. This man just steps into his boat and sits down and says, let's shove off. And he teaches the crowds for a little bit and then asks Peter to go out into the deep for a catch. Now you have to understand something about ancient fishing practices to get to the full magnitude of this story. Then in Peter's day, in order to catch fish, first of all, you had to fish at night because you're using handmade rope nets. So they're big, they're bulky, they're loud when they hit the water, and very, very visible. And so to fish at night is your best chance to actually catch anything, because that's when the fish come to the surface of the water so that they can see better than in the dangers of the deep. So when they're close to the surface, you can scoop the net through and catch them all. Jesus asks Peter to do something absolutely foolish. Let's go out now while the sun is up. And let's not fish in the shallows, let's fish in the deep, so that the fish will see the net coming as it descends upon them and scatter away. Peter knows they are not going to catch anything. He is a professional fisherman. He's an expert in this line of work. And here is this man coming in to tell him to do the very thing that's going to fail. And reluctantly, he does. Okay, let's do that. And what happens next so startles Peter, because he should not have caught anything. And yet they catch a great number of fish. And as he looks at this catch, his mind is probably short-circuiting. What the heck has happened here? This should not have happened. This is impossible. I know better than this man. And yet, I can't deny what's just happened here. And he has to call in help to get that fish ashore. And in that recognition, Peter acknowledges God's presence. And like Isaiah, he falls down before the Lord and says, I am a sinful man. Depart from me. I don't belong here. What you do is far beyond me, and I could never do or be or live with that. So go away, please. And like Isaiah, Jesus heals Peter. You will be a fisher of men. You will be strengthened. You will be able to do what I'm asking you to do. You see, with God's call, there is also an equal measure of grace that heals us, that gives us what we need to accomplish the call. He wouldn't ask us to do something. He doesn't set us up for failure. He gives us what we need so that we can do what he asks, so we can minister with angels, so we can stand in the presence of miracles, so that we can be in God's life and livelihood. God does that for us. And that's where it brings us back to this fear of the Lord, wonder and awe, a love of heart so deep that it desires to change oneself. As you and I listen to these scripture passages, we now reflect upon our own lives and we ask ourselves, where do I recognize God's presence in my own life? It may be as great as what Isaiah saw. It may be as ordinary as Peter's circumstance. It may be miraculous. It may be something totally else. Where do we find God's presence? But the number one thing that wonder and awe, as with our friends and families and loved ones, the way we meet that, the way we meet the Lord, is by deferring to him first. I want to change. I want what you want, God. My happiness depends on you. So what do I need to do to change so that I can be in your presence? And so I guess the number one, the most damning thing for a person, the most damning disposition is hardness of heart, stubbornness. And yet we take pride in our stubbornness sometimes, don't we? I'm not going to change. I got this figured out. I'm right. I'm the expert. I know how this is. I've lived this way for so long. And that stubbornness of heart, the scripture calls it the hardness of heart, prevents God from coming into our lives, prevents a change from happening, and therefore prevents us from really experiencing God, prevents us from knowing true happiness. So I guess as we stand on the cusp of this Lenten season that begins this week, we would do well to ask ourselves, where is my heart hardened? What do I think I know best? Where am I the expert? Where have I already decided and closed my mind, or am unwilling to try new things, or to put out into the deep, into scary water, or a territory that I'm not sure of? These become the questions that are the path to our salvation. Because if we can put that, if we can recognize that, and say, I'm willing to change, I'm willing to open that up, I'm willing to be different. Why? Because I love you. I love you, God, and I want to recognize you. I want to stand in your presence. That's fear of the Lord. That's wonder and awe. That is a heart that desires goodness and happiness, not just for ourselves, but for one another. We learn so much from our human encounters. We've experienced it time and time again. What are we going to eat? What are we going to do? What movie are we going to watch? Whatever you want. We should practice saying that with God. Whatever you want, that's what I want too. Because my happiness depends not on my stubbornness, not on being right or perfect or whatever. My happiness depends upon changing, upon letting you in, being healed, witnessing your miracle, and letting God have the last word. Our happiness depends on that.